Howdy folks, welcome back to another episode of Super Hamster Plays Kingdom Death Monster. If you find this video useful, helpful, or in any way entertaining, do me a favour and hit the thumbs up button on it. And if you haven't already done so, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. Help me take over YouTube one subscriber at a time. So, Screaming Antelope. Probably the simplest model in the game, other than the one-piece starting survivors. But yeah, that's what we're going to do today. We're going to put him together, and you'll see he's made up of two halves, a tail, two ears, an extra horn, and an extra leg, and the base. This is just the insert. As I think I said in the last video, you don't need to stick this to the bottom of the base, because the way I do it, I paint all this bit up and then I spray the bottom of the base black and then stick the two together. So the two ears are slightly different. One is kind of straight with a bit of a join at the back, and the other has got a bit of a dog leg to it. You can see that there. My hands out the way. Yeah, it's got the ear and then it's got a lug. You can probably work out that the lug goes in this side because it's got quite a big recess. You'll work out that the horn goes this side because there isn't one. And you'll probably work out that the front leg goes this side because it doesn't have one. And funnily enough, when you stick the two pieces together, the tail sits somewhere in there. You should see a picture on screen showing you where the parts came from on that particular sprue. All I did was trim them off with the side cutters, like I do all my models, and then I went around and just trimmed up and cleaned up. There were a couple of mold lines on this one, but in big flat areas like on the hoof and the leg. And there's some on the muzzle, and there's some on the horns, which are kind of ridged. But if you're slow and careful, you'll get those. Again, the same with the fur; it's in sort of flat patches. So. But yeah, this should be a really simple model to put together. I'm going to start with adding all the pieces so that it's just the two halves and the tail. Then I'll stick the two halves together, then I'll stick the tail on, and then I will try and work out how and where on the base I'm going to mount it once I know what size it is. And I think the one I'm going to start with is this ear. This ear. And I'm not sure which way around it goes. I would assume it's going backwards. And I have heard that it's not a great fit, and that you may need to trim it a little. Let's just check actually if that is the right one. Is it the right one? Definitely feels like it's the right one. So that must go in there. Yeah, kind of fits, but you can feel the resistance on it. Something like that. But I'm going to need to chop that lug down. But just to be double sure, let's check and see that this one fits here. And yeah, that goes straight in, so it has to be that way. So we're going to have to trim these up a bit to get them to fit, but all in all, I think that's fairly obvious which way round they go. So I think our Tesky cement, our trusty cement, a few dabs on that side, quick dab on that side, and let's see if that holds in place. Now looking at it, I think it's the wrong shape. It is the right ear, but that's a sort of square edge there, and I think I'm going to have to trim it back a bit. The question is how much. So if I put it in So, again, the wonders of polystyrene cement is you've got a bit of time to adjust stuff. Right. That way. Let's see how that fits. I may have just taken a smidge too much off, but I'm pretty sure I can fix that with the cement. And yeah, it's a bit of a gap there, but I can fix that with some green stuff or something before I paint. Can I shape it down a bit more and get it to fit in? A bit off there. So it's just turning it back into a bit more of a point. So it's still a bit more of an angle than it was, but yeah, it's a lot better. Okay, so get rid of those pieces. More cement. And in you go. That's the side you're going to see, so that's the one I want to get right. Yeah, there is a tiny gap there, but I can fix that in when we come to paint. I'll just a tiny smear of liquid green stuff or something in there should be fine. And that's half of it done. The easy half, but now here's an ear. Put that aside to dry. And now we'll get to this awkward ear. And it's definitely the way it goes. But that's quite a fat tab into a small hole. So if that sits flat on the table, if you tilt it up so you're looking down the ear, then I'm going to trim that back a bit. I've dropped it on the floor again. I'll be back in a sec. Sorry, forgot to hit record. Yeah, so if you look at it where you've got that's I'm holding the ear and you've got the tab sticking out. And that I've trimmed a bit that way, quite flat, and that way quite flat. And then I've turned it, and again you had quite a square peg, and I've trimmed a bit off there and a bit off there to just taper it in both planes, all four directions, all four faces, and yeah, just slot straight in now. So, dab in the hole. You'll notice normally when I'm applying cement, if there is a recess, I'll apply it in there first, and the reason for that is it doesn't evaporate quite so quickly from recesses because it's it's being held in a cup, so it's sort of concentrated. It's like if you want your cup of tea to cool down or whatever, then if you put it in a saucer, it'll cool down a lot quicker than if you're holding it in a mug, which its surface area makes sense. It's got a larger area, so it dissipates quicker, evaporates quicker, which is exactly what's going on with the cement, really. But yeah, so it's got an ear. So we've got to apply a horn, and the horn's one of these joints with. I'll see if I can get a picture of it actually before I stick it together. But it's not flat; it's got a step in it, so that should line up quite nicely, and will only go the one way. So yeah, I'll take a quick picture of these, and I've missed a spot when I'm trimming it, so I'll tidy that up, and I can show you that. Okay, so quick dab on the top of the head, quick dab on the base of the horn, Robert's your mother's brother, and there's the horn, but it's, I want to get it happy that. Really what I'm looking at is when you put the two together, do they look even? And I think they do. I'm thinking I'll put these two together next, and when I've got something to hold back here out of the way, and then I can start putting in that front leg. I don't want to start trying to line this bit up and then knocking that off. So as you can see, most of it is just a flush joint all the way around here. There is a little thing in the nose to help you get the head lined up, but frankly it's not great, so it's going to take some wiggling, at least with the fur down the back. It's not going to be too bad. The head's not a great join, there is a definite line, so I think I'll fill that in with some green stuff or something later. But yeah, it's just going to be a case of applying copious amounts of cement on all the joints, or all the touching surfaces, to get a rough fit, and then I'll run some along the joint afterwards to get the proper join. Now I think the side you're going to see most is the top one, so we'll get that right first. And funnily enough, the bottom's just sort of lined up as it goes. Obviously not bothered about how this area here looks, because that will be covered up by the tail when we get that. The joint on the underside of the neck and the skull is pretty good, and you won't really see this bit under here. Yep, and that's sealed that up. While I've got all that cement applied, I may as well go straight away and put the tail on, which again has a little locating nub, but yeah, it's pretty straightforward how it goes. It's almost the socket that it fits into, but not quite. And there's our antelope. Something to join where the tail meets the body. That's him done. And the leg needed a bit of clean up, but again that's pretty straightforward. It just, because of the curves, there's no real wiggle room, it just sits in place. So we'll do that one now, and then we're done. And again, flash over the joints with brush full of cement, seal them all off, and there's our screaming antelope. Now, he is quite top heavy, and that's quite a tiny contact patch, so it's going to take more than a bit of cement, I think, to get him stuck, so I might have to pin him. But I'm going to let this guy dry for a bit before I do that. But yeah, as far as actual constructing the miniatures done, he's done. Okay, so our screaming antelope has now set. Don't mind the blue tack, I'll explain in a minute. But yeah, so he's all assembled. He's pretty rigid. It's been, I don't know, about an hour. But yeah, so he's pretty much set. So we have complete antelope, and we have 50mm base that he sits on. Now if you put him central, as you can see, he's quite far forward. Now what's the blue tack for? Because this isn't very clear, so I'm going to show you, like, there you go. So there's the base. There's the screaming antelope. He's supposed to sit at that sort of angle. So if you put him in the middle, he's leaning quite far forward, and the centre of gravity is off, and he'll look like he's falling forward. So what we're going to want to do is put him about as far back as he'll go, so that the centre of mass, which is somewhere around here, is over the centre of the base. So it's going to be something like that. In fact, that looks about right. So there you go. That's all that blue tack was for. Just hold the base up while I showed you that. So that's pretty much how I want him. Now I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to draw 2 lines either side of the hooves, just to show me where they are. And then I'm going to turn it so that he's now facing forwards. And I'm going to check that's lined up in the middle in that direction. And actually it's not far off it. And again, I'm going to draw 4 lines. And I've now got 2 crosshairs essentially on the base, which is where his feet are going to go. So one's going to go there, and one's going to go there. Because for all intensive purposes, they are fairly rounded feet. Now, although it's not a really heavy model because it's just plastic, it's quite a solid piece of plastic, except for this recess here. And that's a really tiny joint. So with the best will in the world, if you just use glue on that, that's over the weeks, days, months, it's just going to do that. Even if you hold it in place whilst the glue sets, it's still going to put a lot of strain on there, and it's just going to sag. So I'm going to pin it, which essentially is a case of drilling a hole through the base and leaving a little metal pin, and then drilling a hole in the bottom of his foot, and then slotting one into the other, so that the weight is actually taken by a metal pin and not by the plastic itself. And to do that, I need to introduce some new tools. So I have a heavy-duty pair of, I say heavy-duty, they're heavier than the ones I use for cutting plastic, side cutters. I have a pin vise, which is basically a tiny drill you hold in your hand with a tiny chuck to take a tiny drill bit, and in this case it's a 1mm drill bit. And you get all sorts of different designs on these. You get ones that have got a corkscrew, you know, a helix pattern on and a handle on there, so you can slide that backwards and forwards, and as it does, it twists like that. I don't like those. You can get ones that have got a big handle patch thing here that are sort of like a spinning top, so you can grip them like that. Again, I've tried those. I don't really get on with them. So that's the basic one. You can do this with a normal drill, but generally speaking, if you're doing anything in soft plastic or resin or anything like that. You want the control of being able to turn it by hand. You want a sharp drill bit and turning that. And I think this piece cost me the pin vise itself cost me a couple of quid, 2-3 quid in some hobby shop somewhere, and I buy the my drill bits online on eBay, and for about £2 you'll get a pack of about 10, because these do snap. Being so hard and brittle, they tend to snap. And of course we need something to make the pin. Now I happen to have a whole bunch of offcuts of other pins I've made, but just so you know what this pin is made of, it's a drawing. It's paper clip. In this case quite a long paper clip, but any of them work. You can get really flimsy ones which don't work so well, but they'll still work. These are quite chunky ones, and funnily enough they're just over 1 millimetre, which in plastic is fine. If you just be a bit enthusiastic with it, it'll work. Or if you file it into a point, you can then just push its way through. But yeah, that's all these are, is straight sections that I've cut with these. So the larger of the two is the back one. That's the one that's going to take most of the weight. So we'll start with the back one, and we'll drill that hole. And actually what I'm going to do here, normally I'd be doing this on a cutting board, but the cutting board's white and the bases are fairly pale, so they don't show up too well on the camera, so I'll do that. So I can get, you know, there's a bit of a gap there, so it's not going to go through and damage the table. Because again, I'm not going through with a power drill, so when it goes, I'll know. But yeah, so you can't see it, but all I'm doing is twisting that. Just resting my hand. I'm not pushing it down, just resting it to stop it from moving around. And yeah, I'm already halfway through, I think, with that. So again, sharp drill bit. There you go, I'm through. I don't know if you can see, but yeah, there you go. There is now a hole through there, which I'm just going to clear up a little bit. I'm going through a couple of other times. Get that blue tack out of the way. Yeah. There you go. There's my pin all the way through. Now, I don't want to go that deep on this model because, you know, that's halfway up his foot. Well, the first one's quite easy, so I need to get fairly central and go gently, at least to start with, making sure that it's straight in that direction and it's straight in that direction, and just go slow. Take it out. If you push the drill through and put your thumb on the drill and gently slide up, don't push too hard because that's still a sharp piece of metal, but then you pull it out and you'll see how far in you're going. Ideally I'd like to go to about where his hoof meets his leg, again making sure it's straight. So yeah, that's pretty much there, but a little bit more wouldn't kill it. Unless of course I snap the drill bit, slip and stab myself and somehow get steel poisoning or plastic poisoning or something. That might kill me, but let's not do that and find out. Yeah, just a final check on the depth. So that's there. Yeah, so you can see how far up the leg that has gone. that one's a little tight, so we'll just put it back in and we'll just spin it a bit, wiggle ever so slightly, because once you get it started, that'll loosen up. Yeah, just keep wiggling, keep tightening. The problem I've got is these paper clips, I think, are about 1 and a tenth, maybe millimetre, 1.2 mil, and I cannot find drill bits that are that size. I've got some 1.5s, and the hole is too big. And I say these are 1s, and it's a fraction too small, so I could get around that by buying actual lengths of 1 mm thick steel or copper or whatever, but I work in an office, there's hundreds of paper clips lying around. Why would I pay for them? With a bit of manual labour I can get that going. Well, that's the idea. I'm going to carry on fiddling with this for a bit because it might take me a few minutes and it's not very exciting to watch. Yeah, I'll have a bit of a fiddle and get that working, and I'll bring you back when I've got those two done. Right, okay, I'll take my word for it, but that pin there, or that hole there, is now big enough. Essentially all I had to do was I needed a better grip on this, and these particular pliers have got a tiny flat area that works really well for holding those. So, but any pair of like long nose pliers or just regular pliers would work for that. So that's that one done. The next thing I need to do is I push this one back through that hole. And then apply that one onto there. So he's now pinned. I mean, there's obviously a big gap there, but if I now push that flush, I can bend it round, I can work out where exactly that other foot is going to be in relationship to that pin, and it's going to be there, because I'm going to bend that pin ever so slightly when we get there. So essentially what I need to do is work out when this foot here comes down into contact with the base, thusly, how close to that hole is the centre, or that target that we marked earlier, how close is it to the centre? And it's not great. It's slightly off to one side, but I'm then going to drill a hole through the base, basically where they meet. And in this case, it's just off to the side. Now, if I drill up through that hole, directly into the bottom of the foot, where the two meet is exactly where that pin needs to be. It's one of those things you could do with an extra hand or a slightly easier shaped model. But that's marked Yeah, that's marked the bottom of the base, which is all I wanted. So now I can take it all apart again. And if you look there, you see just there. That dot, you can just make it out on the foot, but that is where I want the second pin to go. Now I need to get it parallel with that one, so having it at the angle of the foot isn't going to work. What you're going to do is you need two pins that come down together so you can just slide them straight into the hole. So I need to get it parallel with those two, and because of the angle of the foot I need to be careful with this one that I don't come out this side of the foot, so I've got to be careful how far I go. So again, poke the drill bit through, pull it out. I can go a fraction higher, I think, but not too much. In a moment. I'll put this bit out the way so you can see what and what isn't. Trim off that bit. Keep catching my hands on it. Let's pull this piece back out. And one of the things I did with this is I filed this ever so slightly down, so it's just got a nicer point to it, and that makes it a lot easier for getting that initial. So yeah, it's that one. Let's trim the bottom of that. Yeah, let's trim. Get that one going. Now they're not quite parallel. They're not far off it. And those two ends should line up with those holes. That one doesn't quite want to go, which could be I didn't drill out the hole enough. Once again, 1.2 mil peg in a 1 mil hole doesn't quite add up. There we go. Yeah. And you can see we've now got the pins extending through the bottom. He's nicely weighted. It's not a bad angle. I'm happy with that. If that's flush. Still leaning slightly forward, but I'm okay with that. It's still certainly much. And if I stand him on the centre, that's pretty balanced. It's not going to tip over too far, and you have to come, yeah, quite about that far before it starts to go. So I am fine with that. So that's the dry fit. Disassemble it all. Take the pegs back out. I'm going to glue using super glue, which I think is crazy glue in the States, but we call it super glue. I'm going to glue those pins into place, Once they're done, I will glue the base to the pins and to the antelope, which will leave it protruding out of there, but once that's done, I'll just go in and just clip off those bits. And because the bases for these come in 2 parts, it doesn't matter that that's not quite flush, but if it's a little bit hard, I can just get in there with one of my needle nose files and clean that up. So let's do that. Get you out of the way. Scrap bit of tissue paper, just take off the excess. Ow. Yeah, that's the one I filed. It's quite pointy. I'm just going to put a slight bend in these just to get them a bit more parallel. That's why it's not parallel, because it's not actually gone very far into the hole. That's better. Line that one and that one up. A small amount of glue on the pin. I'm basically just blowing an air bubble. These are the squeezy ones. So there's a tiny amount on the peg, on the peg, and then just pushing it straight through. Final check, but yeah, I'm very happy with that. That's fairly central. It's kind of awkward because the model's curved anyway, so it's not perfectly central, but that will do. And just take one antelope. Yeah, I think they will need a bit of a file down once all the glue and everything's set. There you go. Thanks for watching. I know this last bit went on a bit, but as it's a new technique, I wanted to make sure that I got it right. Showed you how to do it properly. So thanks for watching. If you found it useful, don't forget to hit the like button. And if you want to know more on how the campaign's going, a few more modelling tips down the line, no doubt. And of course how we fight said antelope and the butcher, which I think is the next modelling video I'll be doing. We'll see how things go. Or it might have been the last video. I'm not sure what order I'm going to be showing these in. But either way, hope you've enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Bye bye.